Hello, this is the next video in the IELTS Task 1 Writing Lessons for DoMagettiIELTS.com. My name is Trevor Gordon. I am the owner and a teacher for DoMagettiIELTS.com. Okay, so in this video we will be looking at overviews. You can see on the front page we have a pie chart and a process. So we'll be looking at both of these and some other things that we need to cover in this. Actually, I'm not sure if we're doing a pie chart, so I'm not sure if we're doing one, but if you feel you need one, because I don't think I've included one, I will make another video to show you how to write overviews for pie charts. So let's continue. For task 1, you have to write an overview of the information you're given. This can be written at the end of the essay, but I personally recommend inserting it after the title, and it will complete the first paragraph. So here are some rules for overviews. Only write about what you can see. So imagine you're looking at it without any titles, without any X and Y axis information, without any numbers, without any figures. Just look at it as it is. That's what you're going to describe. With the exception of tables, of course, because tables are only numbers. So you will have to look at the numbers, but you still won't use them in the overview. So do not include data, which obviously comes from here, because the data will be in the body of the essay. You do not need to write more than 2 or 3 sentences. Only provide an overall picture of the data, not all of it. Remember, the instruction, which you will always see, is summarize the main points. So make sure you stick to that. To demonstrate, we're going to use a line. This is actually a bar chart, but some people call them lines, showing dynamic movement. Remember, dynamic movement equals time, whereas static charts equal no time. Dynamic charts time, static charts no time. Here we can see time along the bottom, so this is a dynamic chart. It's the same chart that we used in the title writing video. If you haven't watched that, please watch that, because that is, as I said, the precursor to this video. Okay, so we have our title. The bar chart shows information about male and female students in higher education in Britain in 3 time periods and measures both full-time and part-time students. And here are our 3 years, as we can see here, and it's measured in thousands, which we can see there. So we have all our information. Remember, we're not paraphrasing the title, but we still have to look at it to know what it is. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to decide what the main points of the chart are. This will be the information we will write about in our overview. So here are some key points. Part-time education has the highest numbers. Here is part-time education. Here is full-time education. Full-time education has the lowest numbers. Okay, so those 2 things are very clear. Male numbers in part-time decreased, even though it went down there, from there to there. Over the whole period, it decreased. They decreased, sorry. Male. Female numbers in part-time increased. Female numbers increased. Remember, 70s to 90s, 70s to 90s. So we're going up that way, down that way. Numbers for both increased in full-time. Increased, increased. Okay, that's enough information. Remember, we're not looking at all the information, just the main things. So this main data is going to be enough for us to use. Okay, so if you want to, you can stop the video, check these things against these sentences, see if you can see some of your own. Sorry, see if you can make some of your own. There are a few more things that you could say, not many, but there are a few things you could say. Try and make your own sentences. So this helps you to practice preparing information for your overview. So this is the main data, which is all we're required to report. Check the information to ensure it's correct. As you can see, you do not need data to explain what the chart is showing, as we're going to see now. Using the information we gathered about the data, we can now write the overview. To begin with, we must use discourse markers to mark the information that is going to follow. These are three typical overview beginnings. Some of you will be familiar with these, especially this word. As can be seen, overall we can see that, it can be seen that, the main information shows. That's enough. You're only writing one essay, so you only really need to know one or two styles of overview. That's plenty. So all of these will tell the examiner what is coming next. So the information will follow. So here's an example. Overall, we can see that part-time students had the greatest numbers and female numbers increased, while male numbers decreased. So there's a sentence about part-time. For full-time education, both male and female data showed a rise. Okay, so that pretty much sums it up. In part-time, females increased, males decreased. For full-time education, both increased. There isn't much more. Okay, so there's an example of our overview. You're going to see another example where I've showed you how it can be changed. Okay, so this technique should be practiced regularly until you're comfortable. You ideally should only take 5 minutes to plan your essay, so these parts need to be performed quickly. Only practice will do this. So as a final example, we've added the overview to one of the titles that we wrote in the previous video, paraphrasing the title. So this is how your first paragraph, your introduction paragraph, should look. The chart below displays information about the amount of male and female students in tertiary education in Great Britain over 3 different years, and if they studied part-time or full-time. Now we have the overview. I've changed it from the previous one. Overall, we can see that apart from a decrease in male part-time students, there was an overall rise for both male and female students. So this whole thing is 55 words. 50 to 60 words is reasonable for a title, depending on the length of the title, of course, a title and an overview. You might even have less. Around about 50 is an average number of words. So this still gives you roughly 120 words for the body, because of course you can go over 150. 175, 180 will be perfect. So now we're going to look at some different types of overviews for different essays. Writing overviews for diagrams, maps, and processes. So here, the process is slightly different than for charts and tables, but the process is still the same. For diagrams, you will have to describe either changes to a map, the objective of a diagram, or the order, and the order of a process. So let's begin by looking at the diagram overview. So here is a typical process. It's the generation of hydroelectric power. So the water, the sea evaporates, forms clouds, clouds rain into the reservoir. The reservoir, actually, the water pumps down into the turbine, which obviously pumps more water back into the reservoir. So this turbine is what generates the power. So the power then goes through the power lines into the local electricity station and then is distributed to the houses. So that's all you're really looking at. Even though it looks complicated, it's quite simple. You've just got to follow it. So here is a typical diagram of the process of producing hydroelectric power. Here, the overview will consist of the number of steps in the process, followed by the first and last process information. Okay, so we can see. Overall, it can be seen that there are 10 stages which begin with seawater evaporation here, seawater evaporation, and finish with the delivery of electricity to homes and businesses. Now, I've used the word delivery. Delivery doesn't mean it has to be on a truck or in a van or in a car or anything like that. The cables are what delivers the power to the houses. So don't be fooled by the word delivery. Okay, so we use it, or you can use distributes or other words, but delivery is fine in this case. So here's another one which is slightly different. We can see that there are 10 stages which commence with seawater being evaporated by the sun. So the sun evaporates the seawater, and finish with power being distributed to customers. So distribution instead of delivery. And again, all these words you're learning, keep them, because you might use them in different situations. So, you know, if you find synonyms like here, use them, keep them, learn them. So if you get stuck, you can find a word and change it. So, as you can see, we're talking about how many stages there are, the first stage and the last stage. That's all you need for a process essay. Sometimes the process will split into two, but we're going to see that in a minute. So, maps. Here is a map of an island. Now, sometimes you will get a date, for example, 1950 or 2010. But here, for this one, we haven't got a date, so we don't have to worry about time. But what we're looking at is the development of the island and what it was before. So some maps will show 2 different years, often set apart, but sometimes no information is given about time, as in here. The procedure is still the same. Your overview will describe the differences and the main points relating to the differences. We can begin by using any of the introductions you learned earlier. So whatever the title of the map is, I haven't put the title because we're not doing title paraphrasing. We look at the information, we form our overview. Here we can see that it's been built up a lot. There's lots of accommodation there, there's a jetty and some sailing boats, more accommodation here. and a reception, a restaurant. But you can also see the trees that are still here. They're still originally there, sorry, are still here and there. So I've included that in my overview. It can be seen that there has been considerable construction with regards to accommodation for tourism, with notably the retention of trees. Retention is part of retain. If you retain something, you keep it. You don't remove it, you keep it. It has slightly different meanings, but here it means basically they've kept all the trees. That's what retention of all trees means. Again, another word for you to learn as a synonym. And finally, we look at a process in the form of flow diagrams or sequence diagrams. Here we can see pulp and paper making. Now, here we have a process that splits into two processes. So now when you're writing your overview, you should take this into account. Some overviews, like the previous one, is just one sequence and it's very easy to write. This is slightly different. You have to include the separation, but you don't have to describe it in detail. So here we can see a sequential flow of stages in the process of paper production. We do the same thing as before. We count the number of stages and begin with the first and end with the last. As this has two parallel stages, we include this in our overview. The 5 stages in the first process go from the felling of the trees, felling means to cut down, of trees, to the production of the pulp. So trees, they have to be felled. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it becomes the pulp. So this isn't a stage because all of this is the state. All of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the stages that produce this. Okay. Then we have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Okay, so what I've done here is I've said 6 and 5. I could really change it, but for me, I don't think it's that important. I can incorporate it because the paper rolls are what's produced. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The paper bales, or what's, I said boxes, my mistake. Paper bales of what's being produced. So we have 4, but I'll include that. In the overview, it's not so important if you change something slightly. The examiner wants to see that you're aware of all the stages and you're aware of the overall sequence of events. Because here, as you can see, the second part of this, after this, there are 2 separate processes of 5 stages each to produce both paper rolls and, that should say, bales. Now, you could also change it to be more accurate and say 2 separate processes, one of 5 stages and the other of 6 stages, each to produce both paper rolls and bales. So you're describing the processes and the number of stages. Here you don't need to say, for this, you can't say from pulp cleaning to paper rolls and from pulp former to, because it's too much. You don't need it in your overview. 2 to 3 sentences maximum. So this one would be fine. Okay, finally, a short recap. Overviews for all of the different types of task 1 essays are identical. At certain stages, then they differ. So the real difference is in the process, where you have to describe first and last, sorry, number of steps first and last. So that's slightly different to the others, but you should practice writing all 4 types regularly. When I say regular, I mean you should be doing at least 1 or 2 a day. It sounds like a lot, but the more you can do, the better prepared you will be. The overview will always begin the same. Overall, we can see, it can be seen, etc. The chart, the diagram, etc. shows overall. Then you adjust for each description. Finally, it's worth noting that a good overview will increase your score. It tells the examiner that you understand the data and can accurately provide a basic view of what can be seen. Now, if you look at the rubric for task 1 writing, you will see that a very, very good overview is worth 7. Okay, so you guys, most of you guys are aiming for 6.5, I know, because the exam rules have changed. So for your writing, it's 6.5, but you should aim to go higher than that. So you won't be disappointed. If you aim for 6.5, you might get 6. If you aim for 7, if you get 6.5, you will still be happy. So aim above what you should get. So a good overview is worth at least a 7. So watch this video as many times as you need to. Please subscribe to the channel and watch out for more videos. And if you want to, you can also, hopefully, you can join or enroll in one of several of our low-cost IELTS online courses, which run in conjunction with these videos. They are designed to be budget-friendly, but they are packed with a wealth of information. We have a 10-hour and a 20-hour course. We also have a grammar awareness course. And as I said, these videos will complement all of the courses. So if you want examples, you can go to the website domagettyielts.com, and there are plenty of examples for you to look at. And once again, thank you for your time.